Well, history has spoken, but this time the world is being forced to listen. Now, in a landmark decision at the United Nations General Assembly, a resolution that was led by Ghana has formally declared slavery and the transatlantic slave trade as one of humanity's greatest injustices, and crucially has called for reparations. Now, with 123 countries voting in favor, this moment actually signals a shift from remembrance to probably responsibility. Because for centuries, the scars of slavery have shaped global inequality. And now the question is no longer whether justice is owed, but what justice should look like. But not everyone agrees. The United States and 2 other countries voted against the resolution, raising concerns about its implications. So this morning we're asking, is this the beginning of global accountability or just another symbolic gesture? Joining me this morning for some perspective historically, and is a historian, Kweku Daku-Ankra, who's joined us this morning, as well as Obadeli Bakari Kambon, who is of the Ebibitumi Kasa Institute. He's joined us this morning as well. So we'll go into this conversation. Let me first off welcome all my guests this morning. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Good morning.
Okay, so I guess we have Obadeli now. Do we have Kweku Daku with us this morning?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you so much for your time on the show. Let me start with you, Mr. Daku-Ankra. From a historian's perspective, how accurately does this resolution reflect the scale and brutality of the transatlantic slave trade?
Yeah, so when we talk about the brutality of transatlantic trade, one cannot actually really sort of massage what happened, because human beings were treated as chattels, not as an existing person, or a person with dignity, or a person with rights, or with a person with opportunity for any socio-economic mobility, or a person with any humanity. In fact, a human being fails to exist as a human being, and that human being within the transatlantic slave trade actually is defined as a chattel, which means human being is just a goods, like any goods you buy at market. So you can use it for whatever you want to do, you can throw it away, you can destroy it, and even if it is like an animal, you can kill it the way you want. So the human being has no right. In fact, the human existence is actually withdrawn, and the human being does not exist. That is the manner people ought to understand the definition of a slave within a transatlantic slave trade. It is quite different from the kind of pre-colonial African slave that we used to have, who has rights, who has opportunity for socio-economic mobility, who have rights that you cannot kill them, who have rights that their children they born belongs to them, who have rights that even when they marry, there is opportunity for them to become free, who have rights that even when they move away from their masters and enter into a shrine, they become free. Within transatlantic slave trade, even if you run away from your master and you go to a church, the church will pray for you and advise you to go back to your master, to go and do the Sabbath work that you are doing. When you are being whipped and you run to a pastor, he will preach from the Bible and teach you why it is right to be continue in your state as a slave. So there was no opportunity for you to run away. The end result always is death. So this is not something we can lighten in discussion. Sometimes you hear some people saying, I wish my ancestors were born during the slave trade so they could have enjoyed today like African Americans. And they say some of these ignorant statements, not understanding the perils, the pains, the dangers, and the death that these people went through, right from their time of British, from the point of embarkation, which is where they are born as African coast, and the way they will suffer across the bigger passage, where some of them were thrown overboard the ship when there is a dysentery or any epidemic on board the ship, where there is an incident of overloading, people were actually thrown into the Atlantic as they moved. And then when they reach into their destination, at the destination, people will be arranged as if you were at the cattle market to decide which person you want to buy and the price that you intend to buy the person for. And then they cut them away from this slave market before they go into the plantation, where people's labor rights are abused. They are not paid for any job they do, or the donkey job they do at their plantation. The reproductive sexual rights of women are also abused. So when the slave master sleeps with a slave woman, the children he bears with the woman becomes also the property of the slave master and every other allied family associated within the slave plantation. This is what we are talking about. So the sexual reproductive right of women.
Thinking about moving back home? We've already helped hundreds secure citizenship, housing, relocation, driver's licenses, and business setup. Endorsed by Ghana's Office of the President, we make your move seamless. Learn more at www.r2gh.com. Your new life is waiting.
The right of the people's labor, as well as soon as even when they buy these enslaved Africans, they give them new names, thereby cutting away their own original name and their ancestry and the family life, leading to what is called social death among these enslaved Africans. So we are talking about a very dire and macabre sort of danger and experience which one can never wish for a fellow human being.
Okay.
So that is the extreme danger of the transatlantic slave trade.
All right. Mr. Dakwanka, kindly hold the line for me as I move to Obadeli this morning. Obadeli, when we talk about reparatory justice, what does that truly mean in practical and moral terms? Again, I'll seek your reaction to this particular resolution from the UN.
Very good. So this is Professor Bakari Kambon, professor at the Institute of African Studies, and also the founder of the Decade of Our Repatriation, DOOR, that was launched at the Diaspora Summit 2025. And I bring that up because, a lot of the talk has been around how
production of indigo took place in Jamaica. The people who were enslaved labored on those plantations from sunrise to sunset. And the conditions under which they worked were brutal. They were beaten occasionally to the point of death. They were underfed. They were kept in cramped quarters and often died young, if not from labor, then from disease. There have been records of some enslaved women who were kept as breeders. Let's not mince words, ladies and gentlemen. Business was booming because when labor is free, profit margins are huge. African lives were disposable. If too many of the enslaved Africans died, more were captured from their homes on the continent, enslaved and trafficked. During conversations about slavery, the point at which euphemisms are introduced, and there's a rush to talk about abolition. But we cannot afford to look away. This is precisely the part when we should pay close attention, because the devil is in the detail. And I'm going to share 4 trafficking destinations with you. Remember, when you hear these numbers, that it's not about data. These are about human beings and human lives. Roughly 6 million enslaved Africans were trafficked to Brazil, which is the 5th largest nation in the world, stretching 4,400 kilometers from north to south and 4,320 kilometers from east to west. Almost 2 million enslaved Africans were trafficked to Jamaica, which was the most profitable of all sugar-producing locations. Jamaica is 235 kilometers long and between 34 and 84 kilometers wide, depending on which point you are located. About 500,000 enslaved Africans were trafficked to America from the early 17th century, when the first ship arrived, to the 19th century, when chattel slavery was eventually abolished. Clause 2 of the same code details what to do if any Negro man or woman shall offer any violence to any Christian, as by striking or the like. And it goes on to say that if it is a first offense, the Negro should be severely whipped by the constable. However, if it's the Negro's second offense, he shall be severely whipped, his nose slit, and be burned in the face. The code gave owners and overseers the ability to torture, maim, and even kill enslaved Africans with impunity. And became something of a template for the rest of the Anglo-Atlantic world. In 1662, a year after Barbados enacted this code, a legal doctrine was established to set judicial precedent in the American colony of Virginia. It was titled Partus Sequitur Ventrum, for those of you who understand Latin, which translates from Latin as, "What is born follows the womb." This legal framework ensured that all children born of enslaved women would also automatically be enslaved regardless of who the father was. And it is important to note that many enslaved women were impregnated because they were raped by the plantation owners or their overseers. But what this law did, even in cases where a baby was not the product of rape, was to strip the child of its paternity in the eyes of the law. That child, as an enslaved person, was property that could be given or sold at its owner's whim. The doctrine throughout the Americans, including in Brazil. People sometimes try to put a disclaimer on slavery by insisting that you cannot use the social norms of today to judge the actions and events that took place in the past.
All right, so those were some portions of President Mahama's speech at the United Nations General Assembly that eventually voted to recognize the enslavement of Africans during the transatlantic slave trade as a grievous crime against humanity. We still have Professor Obedeli and Kweku Dako Ankra on the lines with us. Prof, before we took this break, you were speaking, you giving us your initial reaction to this particular issue and what it means, reparatory justice, what that truly means in practical and moral terms. You can continue from there, sir.
Yes, very good. So, as I was saying, that when we're looking at a UN General Assembly resolution that is not legally binding, that means that from there, we're not going to see reparations, but it sets a precedent. However, what we are already doing, and again, as I mentioned, we have the decade of all repatriation, which was launched on the 19th of December at the Diaspora Summit. So anyone who is interested, you can look at the launch. It's been viewed by 250,000 people so far. The Decade of Our Repatriation, and the acronym of that is DOOR. And the idea is that this is Ghana's great brain gain. This is the door that is opening to a better Ghana, where those who were kidnapped and taken in transatlantic enslavement are able to come back. But I want to also highlight that when we talk about transatlantic enslavement as the greatest crime against humanity, that this is not the totality of it, because you also had the Indian Ocean enslavement, you also had trans-Saharan enslavement, and that actually predates transatlantic. So if you want to look at the year 628, this is when the first CD people who were taken from the coast, the eastern coast of the continent, arrived in India as part of the Indian Ocean enslavement of black people. You can also look at the year 869 CE, and this is where you had the rise of the Zanj Rebellion. These are black people who rose up against their enslavers, their Arab enslavers, and what is now modern-day Iraq. So when we're looking at enslavement and, only talking about transatlantic enslavement, you're missing also those who are kidnapped and they were forced to become eunuchs. That means that their genitals were cut off and they were forced to supervise harems. These are people who, enjoyed so many, as we spoke about the atrocities of transatlantic. But again, when we're looking at it comprehensively, then we can say that enslavement in totality is the wound, is the injury, and the healing part of it comes through repatriation. And that's why, again, the government of Ghana, Office of the President, has endorsed the Decade of Our Repatriation, where for this entire decade, those who are looking for support, those who most recently, we had 150 diasporans who just got citizenship in the first wave since the official launch of the Decade of Our Repatriation. So for those who, are interested in, well, what can actually happen from this? You saw that there was opposition from the U.S., from Israel, and then also from Argentina. Now, in the case of the U.S., I'm not surprised at all, because some people may not know that slavery is still legal in the amendment. And I'll read it for you verbatim. It says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So that caveat of saying that slavery shall not exist except as punishment for a crime is the reason why you have the criminalization of black people. Immediately after they ratified that amendment, they started doing what they call convict leasing. And they had these laws where they said if a black person, sells produce after dark, or if a black person, speaks loudly around white people, it's a felony or a misdemeanor, and they can be arrested if they're loitering. They would literally find any reason to arrest black people so that, when it's time to pick the coffin, they're still working for free, because the amendment said that slavery shall not exist unless you've been convicted of a crime. And at this time, you had the case where black people cannot testify in court against a white man. This means if any white man says that you stole a piece of wood from a fence, that this is now a felony. If any white man says that you stole a chicken, it doesn't matter whether you stole a chicken or not. All that has to happen is that they need free labor. So this is how swamps get drained. There are a couple of things that people should look at. One is called Worse Than Slavery, and then another one is called Slavery by Another Name, and you can look at both of those. One is a book, one is a documentary, and it goes into how they actually interviewed those who were in charge of these prisons, where they said, oh, this is even better than slavery, because during slavery you had to take care of them even in the winter when they're not working. But with this one, you can arrest one, work him to death, and then arrest another one. This is even better than slavery. So again, slavery, for those who are not aware, it's not surprising, like I said, that the U.S. is against this resolution, because slavery still exists per their laws, because all they have to do is arrest someone. Again, when we're looking at the restitution, when we're looking at the restoration, we're looking at repatriation, and this is the one that we can do for ourselves, and that's already happening. So if you're not seeing money, coming, or reparations coming from the U.S., if you're not seeing it coming from Israel, if you're not seeing it coming from Argentina or any of those member states of the so-called EU that abstained from the vote, that there is something that we can do and that we are actively doing right now, and that is reparations, self-reparations in the form of us being able to come home. I got my citizenship under President Mahama in 2016. My parents, my sister, my wife got citizenship, and many others, 126 others got citizenship in 2019. So these are the things that are ongoing where we're actually coming home. We have, through Decade of Our Repatriation, this is an initiative of Repatriate to Ghana, and people can look up repatriatetoghana.com. We've helped literally hundreds of people repatriate where they're able to now get land. We just had over the 100 years of Black History Month celebration, which was celebrated last month. We were actually teaching key courses at the Institute of African Studies where I work so people can reclaim their own language. That's something else that was taken and stolen from us. We also have, where people are able to come and get married. We actually help people get married to Ghanaians here. They're now having children here. So this is the reintegration as part of the restitution. So again, where it comes to reparations of cash from the U.S. or Argentina, Israel, or any of those abstaining states, you may have to wait a long time. But where it comes to repatriation, the Decade of Our Repatriation is here right now. For those who are interested, go to decadeofourrepatriation.com, go to repatriatetoghana.com, and these are initiatives, again, endorsed by the Office of the President, Ghana Tourism Development Company, and others. These are the things that are actively happening right now, and we don't have to wait for anyone. We have the power to restore in that regard, and again, that's what it's all about from 2026 to 2036.
All right. Prof, thank you very much. Kindly hold the line. I'll come back to you. But let me go back to Mr. Dakuankra. 52 countries, including the UK and European Union member states, abstained. The UK have long rejected calls for reparations because they say today's institution cannot be held responsible for past wrongs. What's your reaction to this, and why has it taken the international community through the United Nations this long, to formally classify slavery at this level of injustice?
UK used to have that a very solid opposition to it, and from the vote, as you also saw, US rejected it, Israel rejected it, and then Argentina rejected it. I will sum it up for you to understand what is going on. As far as slavery is concerned, the major beneficiaries were first Britain. Britain really actually benefited a lot because the Liverpool dogs, you see, the industrial development of the UK were all as a result of the human labor productions within the slave plantations that feed their industries for production of all the produce that were sold in the global market. And the UK slaves actually went to the United States. They were in the New Haven, they were in Massachusetts, Long Island. They were the people that were coming from the 1750s. They made a lot of voyages to the Gold Coast, and they were called the wrong men. People can check this from Randy Sparks' work on when you go to masters. So most of the UK slaves or slave traders found themselves in the United States, and they continued to perpetuate what they were doing, bringing in more enslaved Africans to the United States. And as far as the United States is concerned, they do not want to admit the role of the African or the black person in the development of that country. The role of the free labor in the agricultural production, which is owned by the whites, who are today hardcore members of the Republican Party. Those are the people who benefited mostly from the black slaves. Back in the day, they used to be Democrats. When the Civil Rights Act was passed, these people got angry because rights has been given to the blacks, and they shifted from Democratic Party to Republican Party to continue their institutional racism, benefiting from the sweat of the slaves. The same Africans suffered to build infrastructure in railway, in the building, in mines, and so on, as well as the docks. So for the United States, the mere admission of the fact that free labor of the enslaved Africans contributed towards their socio-economic development is something they do not want to hear. It is a strategic means of removing any role of a black person in the development of the United States we see today. So that is a strategic plan to silence black racialized role within the American development. And if you go to Argentina, the guy who is ruling today is another far-right guy, in fact, a pupil of Donald Trump. And he would do everything. But even before he became the president of Argentina, Argentina has since the 1950s engaged in what we call the whitening of the country, when they strategically disseminate, they killed or chased away blacks in Argentina. So if you look at the South or the Latino countries or the South American countries, all of them had a high concentration of blacks. In Argentina, a deliberate attempt was done to actually whiten the country. When they realized the blacks were more, they came out with a citizenship policy where they opened doors for the whites from Europe and granted them 3 visas to enter into Argentina as a way of trying to curb the insurgence of the black people within Argentina. So Argentina is not known for whitening their country. And that is why even if you look at the South American football team, Argentina are the only ones who don't even see a black player among their team. Meanwhile, there are blacks there who are playing football and they are also engaged in other activities in Argentina. So Argentina, as a matter of their whitening policy, will never actually vote for it. So it is well known. Okay. Again, more Jews who spread from their role in during the Nazis, the Jews as well as the Germans, who were also Nazis, they are all hiding in Argentina. And these racial people will not allow the idea of trying to agree to the role of some of ill treatment against blacks to be a something of subject within their country. So that is also established. For the Jews, one would wonder why Israel, a country that suffered a genocide during the Second World War, claiming that about 6 million of their people died somewhere in the concentration camp, and they understand the idea of people losing their homeland, people being mistreated in concentration camps and what have you. But because of politics or convenience, Israel, who has benefited from reparations from German government, today is opposing the similar treatment that Africans went through. So you look at all this and you see the various interests attached to why people do not want to accept their role of inhumanity against the black people because of the moral question as well as the financial contribution. So they strike the argument into the fact that if our ancestors did it, it is not us. The question is, if we go back to the time that slave trade started, when the Europeans came to Africa, the economy of walking on the street without society taking care of them. So if you read this type of periodic academic scholarship about the period, you will realize that in terms of economic development, Europe was not far from Africa. And however, when the slave trade occurred, as Rodney argued pointedly in his work, how Europe and developed Africa, the most Now, as well as strong African men from the ages of 14 to 20 who were training the African agrarian sector and contributing towards the production and expansion of the agriculture were taken from Africa and sent into the plantation, and they went to work to expand the production in the cotton plantation and other fields, which then produce the raw materials to feed the European industry. All at this time, Africa was losing. So when we speak about this issue, it is not only even about the inhuman treatment, but also the global inequality that flow out of these exchanges, which does not benefit or other way for Africa. So the recent work of Governor Simonglo and Robinson also actually their weapon. Why nations fail? They actually gloss over the fact that slavery is fundamentally something that actually puts Africa behind over 200 years. Imagine as a nation or a family, when all your family has been taken away from you for over 200 years, how can you compete with others? It reminds me of Wycliffe song, Diablo. How can I compete with you with one sword by my side? So this is the kind of things we are talking about. So these nations that are not supporting, the argument that they did not benefit from the slave trade by their ancestors, the argument is that they are benefiting because their ancestors used African sweat to actually lay the foundation from which their societies are standing on today.
Right. Mr. Dakwankra, thank you very much. Please hold on as I go back to Prof. Obadeli. Prof, with 52 countries, including the UK and European Union, abstaining from this resolution, does it take anything away from it at all? And the resolution mentions options like financial compensation, debt cancellation, and returning cultural artifacts. Which of these do you believe, under the circumstances, are most impactful and realistic?
That they say actually in the Caribbean, where they say in a court of fowls, cockroach will never get justice. And that is to say, these exact same members of the UN who we are asking to, make this vote are the exact same perpetrators of the kidnapping of black people. And when we're looking at transatlantic, you can go back to at least 1441. And that is when, under Prince Henry the Navigator, you had Antal Gonzalez and Nuno Tristão, who set off initially to get seal skins and oil. And they came up with this idea. They said, wouldn't it be a great idea to bring to the face of our prince the first captives? And then they kidnapped a black woman and black man. Now, most people in Ghana, they have this idea of, we did it to ourselves, we sold ourselves, and so forth and so on. There was greed and blah, 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 blah. And they have absolutely no idea that this is something that was orchestrated by Portugal, literally kidnapping people. And we actually know the names of those who did the kidnapping. So there's the Chronicle of Guinea by Zurara, which was again written in the late 1400s, where they actually documented how they went about kidnapping people from the coast of what is now Cape Verde and so forth and so on, all the way up until 1626. And that's where you had Fernão de Souza, who was the governor of Luanda, who decided that he wanted to now take tribute not in the things that they were getting before, the palm oil and so forth, from those who they had defeated. They said, from henceforth, you have to bring us tribute in other people. And this was a revolutionary type of concept of this is how they were able to get black people to kidnap other black people when before they had to do it themselves. And I'm sure the majority of your listening audience is not aware of that, what went on. Now, to come back directly to your question in terms of what we're looking at, tangibly, restitution of artifacts, we've seen that piecemeal one by one, where it comes down to financial restitution, where it comes down to, the other things, debt cancellation, that these are the things that where it's not legally binding, none of them have to do anything, whether that's those who voted against in the form of the U.S., Israel, and Argentina, or those who abstained. That, again, there's nothing leaking with a UN General Assembly resolution for any of those things. However, what it does is it sets a precedent, and it also lets you know where these entities, these states, stand on the matter. And again, if you're looking at Portugal and you're going to ask Portugal, there's a quote by Nana Omowale Malcolm X, where in the U.S. there were these notorious robbers, armed robbers, named Frank James and Jesse James, and they were brothers. And he said that to, go to Frank James and ask him to adjudicate against his brother, Jesse James, when both of them are armed robbers, is basically to ask for something that is not going to happen. And that's essentially, what we're looking at with the UN vote, is that these member states of the UN, if you're looking at France, right, look at what they did in Haiti. If you're looking at, Britain, if you're looking at any of these member states that are part of the UK, that are part of the EU, all of these are the ones who directly perpetrated and started it. These are the ones who not only started it, they're the ones who, gave the religious justification. And we can go back to the papal bull. This is the Pope saying that all of these people should be reduced to perpetual enslavement. Your children's children forever should be enslaved. And again, that's coming from the Pope. So again, we have to look at the Vatican and the Catholic Church's role in this as well. Not only the actors, because that's the one who gave the religious justification. In addition to that, like I said, they also did the insuring of the ship. Like I said, on top of that, they also had every single component. They did the ship building. They did everything. They're the ones who established the plantation. They're the ones who ran every single component of enslavement.
Prof.
And they started off doing the kidnapping, and then later on they said, all right, let's get black people to kidnap other black people by saying if they don't kidnap other black people, then they'll be kidnapped themselves. So again, the thing that we can look to actually happening is what we have the power to do right now. That's in the form of supporting those who are interested in repatriating. If the kidnapping was a violation, then the least that we can do as Ghana, which again has the majority of the enslavement.
Prof, I don't know what is happening to your line, but we're not hearing you clearly.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Like I said, so if we're looking at the role of Ghana and what Ghana can do right now, this is in the form of what I refer to as self-reparations, and that is in the form of support for those who are interested in repatriating. There are those who don't want to live under Donald Trump. There are those who don't want to live under, knowing that at any point in time that their door can be kicked in and they can be shot, whether they are born on the continent or born in the U.S. You have so many cases like Oscar Grant, who was shot, like Sandra Bland, who was found hung in her cell, like Amadou Diallo, who was shot so many times in New York, like Kofi Adu-Brempong, who was a PhD student at University of Florida, who had the police kick in his door and was shot in the chest and shot in the face. Luckily, he survived, but they didn't ask, are you a Ghanaian? Do you have Ghanaian citizenship? So there are those who are not willing, ready, or able to live under the hegemony of the Donald Trumps of the world, and they are looking for a place of safety, and Ghana has the ability to provide that place of safety, and that's what the decade of our repatriation is all about. That's what repatriation. I said over 250,000 people looked at the launch video, and we already have people who are coming here and purchasing land, and we don't want people to misunderstand it, and that's also why under the provost of the College of Humanities at University of Ghana, we're having the open door dialogue, door again being decade of our repatriation, and this is where we're going to bring in historic diasporans and even recent Ghanaian diasporans who are coming back to Ghana so that the student body can understand why they're coming. Many students are like, if I can get a chance for a visa lottery, I'm going to the U.S., I'm going to the UK, I'm going to France, I'm going to Spain, I'm going to these places, and they don't know why repatriates are looking to come back because they don't understand the past horrors and injustices that we've suffered, nor the current horrors and injustices that we continue to suffer. And what we're looking for is a place where we're not going to be shot down like a little child like Tamir Rice was shot down, like a little child like Ayanna Jones was shot in her grandmother's apartment. We're looking for safety. Whatever money you think that you can get in the U.S. and UK and so forth and so on, none of that supersedes the fact that you can be killed at any point in time just on a whim when a police officer or even a common citizen decides that he wants to go on a fishing trip and kill some black people. So these are the things that we're suffering from every day. Me, myself, you can look at a BBC article where I document how I was wrongfully arrested in Chicago. Me, when I had 2 master's degrees, I was working at universities in Chicago. I was doing, an upstanding member of society. But when the police decided that they wanted to arrest me, they're not asking me any of those things. They're just going to arrest me and put me into jail. And when I beat the case, I said, this is the last straw. I am leaving the U.S., and that was a good 17 to 18 years ago. I've never set foot on U.S. soil again. So whenever your listeners are thinking about they can get in the U.S., they also need to think that they can also get a bullet in the U.S. That's what black people are suffering day in, day out. They can also be imprisoned in the U.S. because, again, according to U.S. law, slavery exists once you've been convicted of a crime, and they have no intention of letting black people off the hook from the free labor that built the U.S. The same thing where you look at the White House being built by the labor of enslaved people. When they call the U.S. the land of the free and home of the brave, we know that that is nothing but hypocrisy because, again, there were no free people who were, building all of these edifices and structures that form the very U.S. government. When you're looking at the Department of Justice that's on stolen land and being built by stolen people, that this is pure hypocrisy. So, again, these are the things that we can do for ourselves in the form of self-reparations, the repatriation, the support, where we're able to come and get citizenship and not have to go over so many hurdles where you have to pay $25,000 and give a DNA test and all these other things that, are just, absolute abominations, that we need to actually have the road smooth. And that's what Decade of Our Repatriation is about. Okay. And you're going to hear more about that over the next 10 years. All
right. Thank you very much, Prof. Hold the line. I'll come back for my last set of questions. But let me go back to Mr. Daku Ankra. The resolution is linking slavery to present-day inequalities. Historically, how direct is that connection, especially for African states, and how should we interpret Africa's role in leading this conversation to compared to that complex historical position during the slave trade era?
Yeah, so I made mention of it from my last take, where I talk about when the Europeans came to Africa, there was some vast difference in terms of the economic structure because we are all mostly agrarian societies with some modern forms of credit systems, modern forms of fishing economy, with some modern forms of artisanship, except that there were some more developed or advanced form of system within Europe, particularly when the printing machine came, and then also the emergence of machines for large production. That was what took the scale. But for all these productive machines to get goods to produce in large sums for human consumption, then you need the human labor to actually till the land to produce the resources that you need for this production. So if you look at England, for example, England first stole the textile industry technology from the Indians, and they moved it to England. And then they need more cotton production where they can use it to actually make this textile to actually control the global economy. So you need human labor. And that is when kidnapping or the trafficking of the African became very crucial. So they take a lot of the Africans who also ought to actually work very hard to boost the agricultural economy. Today, you and I, it was recently that other social sector is trying to overtake our economy from the agriculture. Agriculture has actually been spearheading African economy for a very long time, even after independence, and that is something that can be verified, as you know. So at that period, we are all using agriculture and then the emergence of the industry. So I would say the global economic differences, the shift came with the African human production within the agriculture sector, which was based on free labor, and we continue to actually mention this word free labor because when they work in the cotton field, what the yen they get out of it, or the cotton itself, is sent to Europe, which was used to actually produce the goods. They did not take only the human labor alone. Our resources too was kept out. The gold, in fact, before the slave trade started, gold was something that was actually taken from Africa alone. Our population of elephants that has gone down because of ivory trade and so on. So there has been a lot of exchanges, and within these exchanges, Africans have been at receiving end. It is the foundation of this racialized, unequal global trading system. That is how it started from. So there is no way we can talk about today without looking at how the experiment of global inequality, how the experiment of the racialized global economic structure came about. All have its roots from the very beginning when the slavery was started, and it was adopted over the years in its various forms, as you see in the capitalism and its new model of neoliberalism. So whenever the Europeans or the global north are arguing as if the African's problem is only internal and refusing to look at the external influences and how it has shaped the global economic divisions, that is not a true account of what actually happened. We need to go back and look at how we all started, what happened, and what happened, or the game changer was slave trade, and afterwards colonialism. And colonialism, after taking its roots from slave trade, colonialism was also extractive, which was that colonialism is that of capitalism in disguise, where Africa was seen as a colony or a place of extraction. So all the resources in Africa were taken and then sent to develop Europe in terms of even surplus human beings, or what we call unemployment. When the Europeans are facing any major socio-economic upheaval, and there is also massive unemployment, these unemployed people are sent to Africa and they're given jobs in the colonial administration. So while they are a country does not suffer from any upheaval, Africa was overburdened, crowding the space, making it impossible for Africans to even get jobs within their own country during the period of colonialism. So issues of global inequality is something that we should understand. The slavery and colonialism, when joined together, has been the foundation of the sharp divide between the global south and the global north.
Okay, right. Mr. Dankwa, finally, is this resolution historically significant in itself, or does its true value depend on what happens next?
This has been fought for a very long time at academic space. There are a lot of academic writings on reparations for a very long time, except that it has not been able to get a set forum like UN. It has started, in fact, the United Nations has been working around this issue for a very long time. They have agreed to International Day of Remembrance, but the idea of reparation is something that we have not moved. The UN has not moved. And now that they have accepted and the vote has cast, I think the actual conversation is about to start.
Okay.
And so we should actually be glad as Africans that finally, years of of maltreatment against our fellow Africans or our ancestors, we have finally had the opportunity of having a say at a very important forum to let the world know, and also what the wealth of Africa and our contribution towards civilization, and then the socio-economic development of Europe and then North America we know today.
Okay, right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kweku Dako Ankra, for talking to us this morning here on the Asaase Breakfast Show. We are grateful. All right. So let's conclude with Professor Obadele. Prof, who gets reparations? One key issue raised is uncertainty about beneficiaries. How can that question realistically be addressed?
So Ismail, who went on a racialized campaign where even those black people who had been freed, called the Haritani, were once again captured and enslaved. So what you're looking at is a racialized enslavement. Also, you had the Pope in the papal bull called Dum Diversis, dated 18th of June, 1452, and then also a follow-up Romanus Pontifex, 8th of January, 1455, where he said that, again, this is going to be perpetual slavery for the pagans, the Saracens, and he was referring specifically to the black people. So from both the side of the so-called Europeans and the Arabs, both of them had racialized enslavement. But anytime we just use a blanket term referring to Africans, then we're letting the Arab enslavers off the hook, and they are the perpetrators of the enslavement that's still going on. When I did that, research, I was also looking into where enslavement is still going on right now, and I found that in Morocco, they use the exact same word for slave and black person, which is abid. That's why when you see so many people who are trying to run away and go to Spain and cross the Sahara and go to Italy and so forth, that the Moroccan security forces are actually throwing black people out of windows. They're breaking their legs as they're there. They're referring to the black women as prostitutes and treating them as such and raping them. That these are the things that are going on right now in this very day and age. And I came across figures, according to Global Slavery Index, that almost 250,000 black people were enslaved in Morocco as of 2016. 500,000 black people were enslaved in what is now called Egypt, which is ironic because that land used to be called Kemet, which means the land of black people. Over 500,000 black people were enslaved in what is now Sudan, and we're seeing the civil wars going on there. You also had Libya, where some years ago you had a BBC video that was put out that showed black people on an auction block being sold, and then there were these protests in front of the Libyan embassy. I looked at that and I said, these people are joking because all of these other Arabs are doing the exact same thing. Libya had less enslaved black people than tiny Tunisia, Mauritania. We can look at all of these states. So these are the perpetrators. And again, when we say African and we're not very clear on who we're talking about, then we're letting these Arab enslavers off the hook because they happen to be on the land that they invaded and are still on stolen territory to this day. When we say Global South, we're letting all of these Arab enslavers off the hook. So where it comes to the beneficiaries, it should be exclusively black people, because if you say, oh, quote unquote, Africans should get reparations, then these Moroccans can stand up and say, oh, well, give me reparations, when they're the ones who are perpetrating it themselves. The Libyans, these Arab invaders, can stand up and say, oh, yes, it's reparations for Africans, and because I'm on the African soil, therefore I'm an African. But meanwhile, they're part of the Arab League, so they know who they are, they know whose they are, they know who they belong to, and they know that they are part and parcel of these. The entire continent is not called Europe. Europe is just a peninsula. It's called Eurasia. Your listeners can look that up, Eurasia. It's a real thing. It's the entire continent. And whether we're talking about the so-called Arabs, whether we're talking about the French, whether we're talking about the British, whether we're talking about any of them, the Indo-Aryans in India, again, I mentioned in 628, you have the first shipment of enslaved black people taken to India, the Sidi people who are still right there. So again, we have to not only look at the beneficiaries should not be anyone who happens to be on the continent that we now know as Africa. It should be exclusively the black people who are pillaged, who are raped, who are lobotomized and sodomized, who are lynched, who are hung. All of these things, it should be the black people who are here on the continent, and it should not include, those Arab invaders who are still on the continent. And I think that's part and parcel of why they avoided the issue, and they're focusing on transatlantic. I say you can't just focus on transatlantic you should also focus on trans-Saharan because that was there before there was even transatlantic, and that's still ongoing right now as we speak.
I think you should
also look at the Indian Ocean because that's still ongoing as we speak. So the beneficiaries should be black people throughout the world, and the perpetrators we know are these non-black enemies of black people, Eurasians in total, including the Arabs, including the French, including the British, including all of these other, states, many of whom abstained. If they didn't abstain, they opposed outright, those 3 votes. So we need to be very clear on who we're talking about, because as long as we think it's a question of the West and the rest of us, we're going to miss. And again, like I said, the Arabs are going to breathe a sigh of relief because they say, oh, these people think it's just Libya. We're all enslaving black people, and we're going to continue enslaving black people. And that's what's been going on.
Prof. Obadeli Bakari Kambon, thank you very much for your time here on the Asaase Breakfast Show. It's been wonderful having you this morning. Well, yes, he's the owner at Bibitumi Kasa Institute and also a lecturer, the senior lecturer at the Institute of African Studies, joining us this morning together with Kweku Daku Ankra, who is a historian, as we did justice to this particular subject here on the Asaase Breakfast Show. Now, you spoke and we have listened to you as listeners of Asaase Radio. And so we are, in fact, of the Asaase Breakfast Show. And so we are leveling up for you. The Asaase Breakfast Show is getting a fresh structure to serve you better. Now, let me tell you what's new on the ABS from the month of April. Business News now joins the 6 a.m. bulletin. Sports Now, the very latest in the world of sports, moves to 10 minutes past 7. Your news review and your take gets to be extended. And so there's going to be more time for your voice. Because this isn't just our show, it's yours. And we are grateful for riding with us. And we are committed to bringing you nothing but top-tier content every morning here on the Asaase Breakfast Show. The Asaase Breakfast Show is a voice of our land. So the conversation moves from recognition to restitution. Of course, the world may have crossed a moral threshold, but the road to justice is far from settled. And the real test begins now. We're asking, will this historic vote lead to tangible change, or it will remain a powerful statement without consequence?
For hundreds of years, millions of Abibifo were torn from these shores, stripped of our names, our languages, our histories. The genocidal kidnapping didn't just break families, it severed an entire people from their homeland. But roots don't die, they wait. Today, descendants of that diaspora are making a choice their ancestors couldn't. They're coming home, not as visitors, but as repatriates, to Ghana, to Nigeria, to Senegal, to the continent that never forgot them. This is more than return, it's repatriation, it's reclamation, it's healing. It's the closing of a circle that was violently broken open centuries ago.
The door is open, from diaspora to destiny.
Learn more about citizenship pathways, relocation resources, and community networks for diasporans returning to Africa.
Come step inside, oh Asia. Door down open wide, over there. Black star line, come home, now this your time. Doors open now, this your time, this your time, this your time. Doors wide open, come step inside, now this your time, this your time. Come on now, this your time, now this your time, this your time. Doors wide open, come step inside, now this your time, this your time. Doors wide open, this your time. You run go abroad, try chase your win. Concrete they loud, but you drown your skin. Spirit they whisper, Charlie check within. Won't be the root where they hold your chin. They make it hard, so you chase new ground. But the same ones break and the rush come down. Lies they so why they tire go, though they come back home. This is our cocoa. Aquaba, aquaba. Come step inside, oh is ya, oh is ya. Door don't open wide, oh back, oh back. Black star line, come home now this your time. Doors open now, this your time, now this your time, this your time. Doors wide open, come step inside, now this your time, this your time. Come on now, this your time, now this your time, this your time. Doors wide open, come step inside, now this your time, this your time. Doors wide open, this your time. They come to our homes, but the link no die. Try to break us down, but the vibes still fly. Everywhere you touch, you they multiply. Your bounce they show, say we still they tight. Then go hype their place, build these blocks this on. Years don't pass, but your mind still strong. Shall it fall in? Make we build this home. Black star up and the work's begun. Your time, your move. Drop your gear, your reach, your coins. Come stretch that hair. World they take, but the card don't play. It's the great brain game on my next 10 years. Aquaba, aquaba. Come step inside, oh is ya, oh is ya. Door don't open wide, oh back, oh back. Black star line, come home now this your time. Doors open now this your time, now this your time, this your time. Doors wide open, come step inside, now this your time, this your time. Come on now this your time, now this your time, this your time. Doors wide open, come step inside, now this your time, this your time. Doors wide open.